I had a young kid DM me the other day and he's like, I want to do what you do. And I was like, I couldn't even respond to him.
It's like, what do you think I do?
I can't do what I do now if I wasn't cleaning up weights at Equinox. If I wasn't, at one point I was running around the city for 5 years, training as far uptown as 95th Street, as far downtown as Battery Park South, as far east as York, and as far west as 10th Avenue. That's like all of Manhattan, and that's one day for me. And I was doing 40 to 60 hours a week, and people aren't gonna wanna do that. They're not gonna wanna go in on a Sunday. They're not gonna wanna go in on a Friday at 10 p.m. and have the owner give you the key. And I just wasn't, I didn't say no. So you just wanna work less and make more. I'm telling you right now, bold statement. I will turn around to 75% of the trainers in Manhattan. I've probably given away more free sessions than they've ever even trained, all 75% of them. I've given away more sessions lifetime for free than that 75% is probably trained and got paid.
Men are being lied to. You're told midlife is a time for crisis and struggle. In reality, it's a time to thrive. Welcome to the Midlife Male podcast, a show that stops focusing on the why and shows you how to start living life on your terms. Because your best days are still ahead.
So big part of maximizing middle age is really getting inside and seeing how other guys do it. We're at Don Saladino's private barn out here on Long Island. Don is somebody that I have long admired and been inspired by as a husband, as a father, as an expert in health and wellness and fitness, and as one of those quintessential midlife males who also works with and trains some of the most successful middle-aged guys in the world. So it's this unique opportunity to get out here in person, up close, to experience a workout with him, see what he's built and developed, see how he lives and how he does things, get an inside look on being able to do that with him. We're gonna sit down, we're also gonna record a podcast, we're gonna have a little lunch, we're gonna do a little Q&A. That's what we do in the inner circle, and I brought a couple of friends along to join me. I wanna hear about, I'll just be direct, like the really hard times, the stuff that you got into and you said, okay, this is what I'm gonna do with my life. I don't even know exactly what it looks like, okay? But I'm in this. I don't really have a plan B. I'm staying in health and wellness and fitness in here. But like what it looked like for you to kind of, start your gyms, the upward trajectory that I think people, where I'm going with this is they think that the success is a straight line kind of up, and they see these outcomes and they see the magazine covers, and they see all this stuff that's going on. But what I want to get into is like all the curly Q shit, like in the middle of like, hey, it's not this straight trajectory up. Okay, here's what it looked like for me, guys. And if we're really peeling back the onion, like, here's the shit you need to know.
I mean, listen, when I graduated college, I didn't even know what I wanted to do at the time, right? I had aspirations to play baseball, and you find out that pretty quick that there's a lot that has to go into that besides talent, right? And the only thing I could think about was the gym. It was like I even started thinking about becoming like a detective or an FBI agent, because I just was like, what else can I do where I'm going to have to train? I have to train. I can't go off and work at a financial institution. I did intern at a place called Payne Weber, which merged with UBS early on. I remember doing 2 internship programs there. The summers of like 97 and 98, or I think it was 97 and 98. And what started happening in finance then. I mean, it was like, you're looking at trading and you're like, oh my God, is it this easy? It's like, I remember putting a little bit of money on companies like Amazon and Gateway, and out of nowhere, like a week later, you're like, oh wow, I just made X, and like, that's pretty easy. I'm gonna be a stockbroker. And then after 99, you start seeing all these things that are happening. You're starting to see how real the markets are and the amount of money people lost in that tech. There was that tech boom, and then obviously so much folded after that. So I think I remember sitting down having a conversation with my mother, being like, God, she's like, what about these trainers? And I'm like, they don't make money. It was the best advice she's ever given me in my life. She's like, never followed the money. Like, you've never even brought that up. Like, what are you worried about? I'm not worried about that. She's like, go after what you love. You're going to figure it out. And I said, all right. And I became a floor trainer at Equinox. And I literally showed up, and I was just happy to be wearing, to be a part of like an organization. I was 21 years old. I'm commuting into the city. I'm young. I'm in shape. I'm meeting really cool people. I was excited. I wasn't thinking about, where's my career going to lead to me in 5 years or 10 years? Or, oh, what if I don't leave here I never thought about that once. I never thought like, oh, I'm at Equinox as a floor trainer and I made 25 grand my first year, which was actually one of the more higher producing trainers there at that time. And where am I going to be in a few years? I didn't even think about that. The thing I was happy about with when I grew up was I really was present when it came down to situations I was in. When I was playing ball, I was present. When I was in college, I was present. When I was working at Equinox, I was present. And then finally, like I had this entrepreneurial flair in me because I think I saw my family in the catering business. And I was really at a young age, the one thing I knew I could control was hard work. I remember being 12 years old and my dad giving me a broom on the floor. I'm wearing a little tuxedo. And I wanted to impress my dad on how hard I was sweeping and how much I was running around the floor and carrying tables with all the bigger guys. And I was like trying to show off my father just because I wanted to know that I could hang and I could work. So there was those things at a really young age just always stuck with me. It allowed me to feel significant in a way. And then when I found fitness, this really became, my calling. And, I think at that point, there were so many change of directions from raising capital. I raised $5 million as a young kid who didn't know what the hell he was doing.
Hold on, I gotta stop you.
Yeah.
You raised $5 million.
I raised $5 million.
And that's a quick sentence, but it's like, okay, how does a young kid, okay. And
relationships, friends, clients, family. It was just, we put together a business plan and my brother and I went out to the Titleist Performance Institute. He was a professional golfer turned back amateur, very well-respected golfer in the Mets section. And we went out to Titleist in Oceanside and we saw this facility that was ran by Greg Rose and Dave Phillips, Greg became like a mentor and a very close friend to me. And they both were the two of the guys that helped get us started. So when I came back from San Diego, Oceanside, California, my brother and I were like, we should bring this into the city. Like, could you imagine an indoor golf Shangri-La with a gym and putt lab and a bar where we can host events? And we were the first golf fitness gym in New York City. We were one of the first golf fitness facilities in the country. Maybe there's one other place that I think Greg owned called Club Golf in DC that we went and checked out. No one was doing what we did. So we dove into this and it started becoming very successful. And then 07, 08 happened. So all that corporate event money that was coming in went out the door. It was like, all right, see ya. We'd be netting $10,000 a night, 2-3 nights a week. Worst case scenario, 80 grand a month on events. That was our rent. More than our rent at that time, and gone. So at that point, we had to pivot. And pivoting was something where I even think about it now, the most creative moments I've had in my life was when I'm sitting up on the wall going like, holy shit, I'm in deep trouble. We have to pay our staff tomorrow. I'm in deep trouble. We have to pay our rent. I'm in deep trouble. We have to pay Con Ed, American Express. What do you do? And then you sit there and somehow every time you figure out a way to make it happen. And whether it was putting out prepaids to members and telling them, hey, listen, you spent X this last year, give us Y. Let me train it down. We're having a little bit of a problem. And they would give it to us. And
so that's honesty and transparency, by the way. I don't want to gloss over that too.
Yeah.
Your approach to how I'm going to handle this, like how I'm going to continue to move forward. Like how do you even sleep during that too? I mean, I think those are things that even I struggle with right now. It's like, okay, wait a minute, where are we going with this? Or how am I getting from point A to point B? And this is even before you were married and had kids, right? Now it's like,
Well, no, at that time, I actually just got married a year after I opened. So I think we opened in 05. I think I got married, 06.
Okay.
Right? So, was it 07? I don't know my wife yet.
All right, let's talk about the plunge. I love my plunge. This is a high quality, great looking, high performance cold plunge. It uses powerful cooling, filtration, and sanitation to give you a perfectly chilled, clean water experience with no ice needed. And look, I don't know who's gonna tell you that they love sitting in freezing cold water. I'm not gonna tell you that, but what I can tell you is that I love how I feel when I get out of sitting in cold water. So much so that it has become a daily habit. The plunge is the best product that I have found out there for this experience. It is easy, you flip the lid, there is no ice needed, the chiller keeps the water set to exactly what temperature you want it at. I've had mine for years, and it is extremely low maintenance. If you are looking to maximize middle age, if you are looking to bring cold therapy into your life, and you should be, go get a plunge. Go to plunge.com. And when you're there, use promo code MidlifeMale and save. Sisu saunas. I am in my Sisu sauna pretty much every day of the week. I have the 2-person Eddie barrel model. They make multiple sizes, whichever Sisu sauna you go with. Rest assured, you are getting a quality product, a quality build, and quality performance. Cardiovascular health, autoimmune chronic pain and fatigue conditions, mental health, exercise performance and metabolism, detoxification. Those are 5 of the reasons I am in my Sisu sauna. And they work because when I get out of my Sisu sauna, I simply feel better, happier, and healthier. And you can too. Just go to sisulifestyle.com, use promo code MidlifeMale, and you'll save on your own Sisu sauna.
But yeah, it was right around that time. And then we had Amelia in like, 08, 09. It was like it started piling on quick around this time. And, you just had no choice. A big mistake that I made was we went PG. So we went personal guaranteed the space. So, my last year at Drive was our most successful year. And ironically, and our rent alone was about $750,000. Our taxes per month were $15,000 a month. So you're already in the bag, almost $1 million right there. Our overhead was $2 million a year just to keep the lights on. So, I think people don't understand that, managing that process and the pressures, and then having to go on the floor and train, 30 to 50 people a week was also a challenge on top of that. But you have no choice. Like, that's what you have to do. Those are the decisions that we made. And I'm not going to go to mommy and daddy crying to them about it. Like, what am I going to do? You got to be a man, and you got to get creative, and you got to figure it out and pivot. There were other ventures in there too. Like, we started a company called Driven, another really important lesson, because as I'm trying to run this, fitness club, which ended up being 2 clubs, we suddenly got the idea to get into the app space back when apps started booming. And we partnered with a couple of professional athletes, and it was a great idea, but at the end of the day, did we pull it off? Well, yeah, we did, but we didn't, because it wasn't successful, right? So we ended up exiting. We got pennies on the dollar for it, and we had to move on from it. I'll never forget one of my clients. He was a mentor of mine, one of the most successful private equity guys I've ever worked with. And he was literally at coffee with me, like yelling at me. He was like, "You fucking, like, what excuse my language, am I allowed to say it?" He's like, "What the fuck are you doing?" He's like, "You are a gym owner, you're a coach. Stop trying to be this tech entrepreneur. Like, know your lane." And at the time, I was kind of like, what is he talking about? Like, I'm trying to make my business grow, and I'm trying to make it happen. But what he was saying is that you're taking your eye off the focus, and you ain't ready to take it off the focus. Like, you don't have your infrastructure and team in place. If you're gonna leave here, this is gonna suffer. And he was right. Like, he started, and then I started getting excited. Oh my God, what if we sell for X? And oh my God, and this and that, and blah, blah, blah. And you start getting ahead of yourself, and you learn a lesson. And even with investing, and all these brand deals that I've done, it's suddenly like, we want to give you equity. You're like, well, it's a good idea, but now I'm betting on the fact that you actually know what you're doing. Like, when it comes to scaling a business, have you scaled a business ever? And they're like, well, no. And I'm like, all right, so I'm going to put my next 2-3 years into trusting you that you're going to handle everything the right way. No, thanks. And it's just, and you need to, go through those experiences to be able to talk to people about and give advice.
And none of this is the other thing. None of this has to do with how many curls you can do, or 3 sets of 10, or building out the program. Nothing at all. Nothing.
And that's honestly a byproduct. Like, when I train to challenge myself and to feel good. Like, it's plain and simple. Yeah, is it important that my body looks a certain way? I'd be lying to you if I told you it didn't. Like, of course it does. But that's almost like the aftermath of everything. Like, I'm in love with the process. I'm in love with the grind. I'm in love with getting under the bar and being a little nervous. Like, I'm in love with walking in and not feeling 100% and walking out and feeling 110%. Those are things in my life that I can control. Like, I'll be honest, I feel worse coming in here than I feel great. Like, I'm just like, work's getting the best of you, stress, you're on a call, maybe my dog's, I have a kind of a semi-new dog that kept me up half last night. Like, it is what it is, man. Like, I'm not gonna sit here and wait for this perfect environment or for things to be perfect. I'm sure as hell not looking at my readiness going, oh, I need to scale back today. Like, bullshit. Like, let's go. I look at these numbers and I pay attention to these metrics to an extent, but I also know that I have to get it done. And I also know that it's more important for me to be in a good place here than, whether my bench is at 350 or at 335. Who really gives a shit?
Is that why your desk is in the gym also? Like, we're sitting in the bar, which is amazing. It's
Yeah.
like that combination of like, this is like, because you light up, like, this is what I love to do. I'm going to do it anyway.
Yeah.
Like, I'm the product, okay? Like,
Yeah.
I'm going to make the time. I'm going to prioritize my health, my fitness. This is the stuff that clears my mind more than anything. I'm going to do this no matter what. And
Right.
yes, like, aesthetically, I keep myself in a certain shape because that's part of the brand and so on and so forth. But it's
I to keep myself in shape because I want it.
right.
Yeah.
And the aesthetics, I think, are a byproduct.
They're very
of,
important,
right,
but they're very important. But it's like, yeah, I mean, I don't want to say it's easy. It's not easy, the work that I put in, but I know the work that I put in is going to give me an outcome. I'm not sitting there looking at my body fat going, oh my God, I'm at 8%. And last year I was at 6.5. Like, I don't do that. I'll use things as gauges, and I can step out of my own body and say, well, you went up 1.5 points because of this. Or maybe you were doing playing so much hockey and not getting enough nutrition or not getting enough calories in.
But what moves the needle is where I was going with it is the work that goes on at the desk.
Oh, yeah.
That's like, okay, here's who I need to respond to. Here's what's happening with the business.
Oh, yeah.
Here's what we need to here's what we need to do. The bills that get paid, everything
yeah.
else. And by the way, when I get like super frustrated and tired of that shit and it's piling up, it's great. I can literally turn around and I'm dressed in the right clothes and I'm ready to throw down like some weight.
Yeah.
Like, I put a desk in my gym too.
I love it.
And the reason I did it is I feel my best. I feel my strongest, my most confident when I finished a workout. I'm tougher to beat like that.
100%.
So that transition from finishing the workout to immediately being able to sit right down at the desk and like get after the hard tasks or have that hard phone call or that hard conversation or whatever it is, or even work with other guys. And a lot of my clients now are remotely. Like, that's where I want to, it's like the least I could put in between that transition, the better the rest of my day is.
Not many people, I mean, let's face it, March 16th of 2020, Governor Cuomo said we all had to shut our doors, right? And so at that point, you get PPP money. I kept my staff on. I tried to have them handle some stuff digitally, but that part of my business now was evaporating. My entire goal was to keep my staff getting paid. I mean, Rob will be the first one to tell you. Like, I think I kept Rob on till September, October from March, right? Or Kim, I kept on to the following March. I said, Kim, just help me out with some stuff on the side, et cetera. Most people wouldn't have taken the money they were making during that time and doubled down on a place like this. They wouldn't have found it a necessity. They wouldn't have been like, oh, they would have been like, no, so much uncertainty, let's bank it. But I knew, and my wife knew, that like we needed a hub. I needed a home base, not only for our business, but for my headspace. Here I was in my own gyms in New York City for all these years. It allowed me this level of significance. Now, how am I going to be working in the house? So we turned around and we were like, we need this for my business, our business, we need this for my own head. Let's double down on it. And we built this place. This was done by October 2021. I mean, it's not a lot of time after COVID. I mean, we were still kind of in COVID a bit, right? People were still wearing masks. And then I realized that it was this new outlook on work and what I was doing. I almost felt like I just hit this reset button, this refresh button. Let's call it refresh. And where like I am in work and suddenly like all that stress that I was feeling for 15 years, most of it was diminished. And there were little stresses, but not the way it used to be. And then at that point, I felt like I developed this level of resiliency. So I was like, oh my God, like, all these, like, from Con Ed shutting my power down to American Express shutting my cards down to, not having hot water to, missing months' payments on rent and, and all this stuff and borrowing money and paying this one off. It's like suddenly now I have the ability to kind of really take full ownership and control over what I'm doing. And work was like as much fun as I thought work was. Even at that time, I still loved going to work, which is crazy. People were like, what are you, nuts? Like, how do you deal with this? And I'm like, I love what I do. Now to be able to kind of roll it into this and have that 15 years, 20 years, 25 years from being in the city of equity behind me and then rolling into this. I was like, oh my God, I will never, I mean, literally, I'll be in the car sometimes. I was driving to hockey today and I just was like out loud. I was just like, thank you. It sounds so corny, like I'm embarrassed saying it, but I'm literally driving. I have my cup of coffee. I'm going to play hockey at 6 a.m., 6:30 in the morning. And I just turned around. My station was on. I just said, thank you. I just can't believe it.
There was a guy that said to me the other day, runs a thing called the Outlier Project. Scott McDonough, he goes, I get to live my life for a living.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, that really landed.
Yeah.
You know, that those moments like you have, like you were talking about, like in the car, it's like, okay, when you find that you're in the position where you're living your life for a living, like what an incredible situation to be in.
It took a while to get there.
That's the
And that's what people don't
tend to
understand.
see. They see outcomes. They don't see the actions that lead to the outcomes. You know, the actions you take, the choices you make, all the stuff in between that gets you to the moment alone in the car on the way to hockey at 6 o'clock in the morning. And go,
Fine,
okay.
and I don't mind admitting that, but I had a young kid DM me the other day, and he's like, "I want to do what you do," and I was like, and then I was literally like just sitting there thinking, I couldn't even respond to him.
Well, it's like, what do you think I do? The other part of it is like, what do you think I do? I don't think the intent is wrong. I just think it's, again, you're skipping steps.
But I can't do what I do now if I wasn't cleaning up weights at Equinox. If I wasn't, at one point I was running around the city for 5 years, training as far uptown as 95th Street, as far downtown as Battery Park South, as far west as east as York, and as far west as 10th Avenue. That's like all of Manhattan, and that's one day for me. Mm-hmm. And I was doing 40 to 60 hours a week, and people aren't going to want to do that. They're not going to want to go in on a Sunday. They're not going to want to go in on a Friday at 10 p.m. and have the owner give you the key. And I just wasn't. I didn't say no. This is actually a great story. I had a coach recently turn to me and say, "Hey, I'm charging $600 an hour." And I said, "Oh, great, congratulations. How many clients are you doing a week, or how many sessions are you doing a week?" And I think he turned to me and he said 4. It's like 4. Like, what are you doing with the other hours? Are you operating a digital business? He goes, "No, I'm not." I was like, 4. I'm like, all right, so you're making $2,400 for 4 hours of work. I'm like, you're obviously not getting clients at $600 an hour. He goes, "No, not really. That's why I'm talking to you." I said, "Why don't you drop your rate to $200 an hour?" And he was like, "Oh, why would I do that? Why would I work more and make less?" I said, "Because you're getting out of your fucking house and you're giving yourself some opportunity right now to meet people, to meet new referrals. You're working with 4 sessions a week. One person goes on vacation, right? I don't know if is it one person doing 2 sessions, because then we have a real problem. You're losing 50% of your business. Like, put yourself in front of people. Give yourself opportunity. Be omnipresent. Be everywhere. Like, you don't want to do that. You're not seeing the importance. You just want to work less and make more. Even today, one of the best parts about my business are my online challenges, because I am in front of people 5 days a week. And I love that coaching element. I'm able to help people improve. And I think that's something a lot of these coaches don't want to think about. They're just immediately obsessed with the number or the dollar. I'm telling you right now, bold statement. I will turn around to 75% of the trainers in Manhattan. That's a lot, right? I've probably given away more free sessions than they've ever even trained, all 75% of them. I've given away more sessions lifetime for free than that 75% is probably trained and got paid. That's how
we're
many.
We're sitting here right now because of that mentality, I think, also.
Yeah, I'm not. This is
like, hey, Don, can we come over and talk?
Dude,
can we exercise?
You are a great guy. The reason why I'm here with you right now is because Gabrielle referred me to you. I met you, and I think you're awesome. And I didn't give a shit if I was getting anything out of this, like whether I get anything. I just wanted to, I wanted to help, and I wanted to sit and have a great conversation with you and get a good workout in. And you know what, you and I are becoming friends. It's like, great. Like that's good enough for me. And sometimes they roll a really incredible things, and most of the time they don't. And that's okay. But like, I'm not coming into this gonna be like expecting something out of you. I'm not expecting anything out of you. We're having a great conversation. I appreciate that you're marketing me and the barn and all this stuff, and that's good enough for me. But most coaches don't want to sit there and give away free. They're immediately like, well, what am I getting out of it? And that to me is bad.
Well, I think it's a thought process too about, again, how you make decisions, how you assess value, and also put a value on yourself and on your time.
Right.
That it's not free time, and it's not that I'm giving it away, and it's not that I'm undervaluing myself. But again, like, I think a lot of guys miss this too. It's like, what's your thesis around what you say yes to and what you say no to?
That becomes a challenge.
Right, because
Yeah.
so many people are pulling on you, especially now. I mean, we talk about, there are events to go to, there are experiences you can go to. I believe it's like, I say like wealthy people tell me, they don't have trouble with getting deals. Like as soon as anyone knows you have any money, like people are gonna drop a number. Like there's always, I don't have trouble getting deals. It's like, I don't think you have trouble getting overwhelmed with people asking for things overall. And it's back to, again, not that I need something for myself, but it's how do I determine what I say yes to, what I say no to, because there are only so many hours in the day, and I have to be a husband. Again, I have to be a father. I have to still train myself. I have to run my business.
I actually just developed an answer to that. It's funny that you say this.
I want it.
It's funny that you say this because I went through something around the holidays where I committed to a few things, and I was really upset at myself for committing to it. You know, like I was committing to it, exposure and this and that, and it didn't feel right. And the second I backed out of it because I had other things going on, I felt this weight get lifted off my back. The thing is that I think we have to realize that there are going to be times where you turn down an investment or you turn down something, and it hits.
Like more is not necessarily better. Again, I think there's this quality over quantity, and there's a fine line. Again, we talk about, the extreme is in the middle. The middle's messy, but it's the sweet spot.
Right.
But it's like, how do we say no politely?
Yeah.
How do we qualify and quantify what we're doing in here? And nobody's coming to me because they need to do more. Like I've experienced over the last few years, I don't have guys calling me that need to do more. It's all about they need to do less.
Right.
And they need to do less better.
Right.
Or they need to do it around different types of people or the right people for them, because what they've done is overcommitted and they've over-indexed in so many of these areas. And you're right. It's like when you release the valve, if you can release the valve, all of a sudden this weight is lifted. But here's where it gets interesting. Can we now do it up front? Instead of the overcommitting and backing out, is there a way to think this stuff through up front? Just like we get better at training and everything
100%.
else. So I can make fewer, quite frankly, poor decisions or overcommitments, but the self-awareness is getting better because guess what? I'm now realizing that I've overcommitted and I need to get out of some of this stuff because I need to operate better each day. Like we're getting better at all of it.
No, you're right. I mean, listen, we're gonna mess it up on occasion, right? You're gonna say no to something that ends up being a success, or you're gonna be like, man, I should have went, right? Like it's gonna happen, but you've gotta, I still believe, like you've gotta follow some rules and values, right? There are people that can call me right now, Dr. Gabrielle Line being one of them, and she's like, hey, listen, I need you in Austin next week on this date. And I'm like, or you want to fill me in on why I'm coming? Like, it's like, she's like, no, I'll tell you there. Like, I'm getting on a plane. My wife knows I'm getting on a plane. Like, there's certain people in my life I'm just going to go do that for, but they've earned it, right? And then there's other people that you do favors for and you step up for that come back to the well and they ask again that you got to make a decision. Is this going to make you feel good or is it time to move on? And you know what? Once in a while, you're going to make the wrong decision, but you got to follow those rules and values. Otherwise, you're going to drive yourself nuts.
Mm. Do you spend time, or again, do you worry about, again, the perception about what other people think in that regard anymore? Because now, again, everything is so forward-facing and everything is kind of out there. And in the business that you're in, I know, like, there's this, like, oh, I don't, no fucks given, and I don't give a fuck.
Oh, that's bullshit, by the way.
And
please.
I think it's like,
I think it's bullshit.
I agree with you. It's I don't want to be a bad guy or perceived as a bad guy, but also, again, like, how do you feel with like setting those boundaries, and do you think about that kind of stuff? Or
I'm not going to tell you that. I'm not going to tell you I'm one of these people that are like, oh, I don't fucking care. I don't give a fuck. Like, no, people say things to me sometimes. It gets under my skin. People say things to me. It's hurtful. Yeah, I'm an emotional person. I've been working on that in the sense of like where it bothers me. And yeah, that's who I am. And I got to just fucking grow up and deal with it. It's a part of it. It really is the reality of it. I think when I communicate with people and I say no, I do it in a way that's really, I won't use the word pleasant, but I think I feel good about it. It's like, hey, listen, I would love to. I'm getting pulled in a million directions right now. I'm on hold for a job that I have to be traveling with a big name. I don't want to have to sign up for this and cancel. Do me a favor, get someone in there because I'll feel awful. I can't be any more grateful for the fact that you asked me, and thank you. Like that sounded pretty, no one's gonna get pissed off at me for giving that type of answer. Not like, I don't have time for you. It's like, okay, like this is basic human 101 here. So I just think I've always done a good job in massaging people's shoulders. There's a line I've always used called play the game. Don't, like play the game, man. Like you got, like I work with so much of Hollywood. You got to learn how to play the game, and you got to learn how to play to people's strengths and weaknesses, and you have to learn how to talk to them.
It's an area like we talked about. You train a number of celebrities. You're under there too, and just like in that, is it kind of like a live by the sword, die by the sword kind of thing too?
Like what?
Meaning that if I go too far down this celebrity, let's say path,
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah, like again, like you sit back and go, oh, wait a minute.
I didn't want to be called a celebrity trainer.
That's right. That's what I mean.
I think it devalues. I think it devalues me professionally. One of my buddies, Mark Fisher, paid me a great compliment. He's like, "You're the guy who made celebrity training legitimate." And I was like, "Oh my God, thank you." Tell that to everyone. No, joking, but not really, because it is part of it. It's like when people hear that, they immediately think, there's a level of fluffiness or a lack of education. And I did care about it early on. And now I've learned to just embrace it a bit because I understand the amount of marketing it's given me. And I also have really become comfortable in my ability to coach and the reputation I built in the industry and the people that I work with. And, there's longevity there. So I think I feel really comfortable about that now, where maybe 20 years ago, I wanted to go into the room and prove myself. Now I feel like I can really just walk in the room and just be myself, and, whatever. If they call me celebrity coach, or they're like, oh, he's a celebrity coach, then okay. But if now I think I've earned that reputation in the industry where, most people know what I'm all about. And I'm really proud of what I created, but I did not get into this business for people to, I never was like, oh, I want to be a celebrity trainer. Like it kind of fell on my lap. But again, being malleable and being able to adjust and being able to, adapt to, that direction in business was something that, again, I'm really proud of.
When you say it fell into your lap, I'm just going to hang there for a second.
It fell into my lap.
Okay.
So, listen, let's be very clear here. Hugh Jackman was training with a buddy of mine. My buddy asked to bring him to my club. He brought Hugh by. Hugh and I got friendly. He saw me training. He saw me running. We started talking about body composition and body comp change. And his trainer ended up, long story short, having triplets and moving. And he had to find a new coach. And he asked me if I would work with him, right? And 100%. I started working with him. There was no social media. There was no real marketing piece to, anything that we were doing. Like even if, he asked me at one point, do you want to do Men's Vogue with me? And I told him no, because I was like, what's the point? Like it's why am I going to sit here and jeopardize this guy's privacy? I was probably an idiot back then. I should have done it, right? Why am I going to jeopardize his privacy at the time? But I did remember that there was a level of respect he gained with me. And I haven't trained Hugh in 17 years. I just saw him in London. I was with Ryan Reynolds, who's my guy. Ryan's the one that's, Ryan and his wife Blake are the two that have really helped put me on a pedestal, and they've become like family to me. I was with Hugh and Ryan in London when they were shooting Deadpool 3, and talking and hanging out, and life was good and all that good stuff. But yeah, it was the fact that I was so concerned with his privacy. I think then he started referring me out to some of the biggest names in Hollywood. And when they would come in, it was just this way of handling them. It was never like, oh, I love your movie. Like, oh my God, like, why would you say that? Like, it's like, come on. Like, it's like, oh, hey, nice to meet you. Okay, let's sit down. What are you trying to do? And I'm sitting there and I'm speaking to them like it was their older brother talking to them. And I think they were a little blown away by the fact that I could just give two fucks. But it was really me just saying like, no, you're going to be treated like a normal person in here. And we're going to get you from point A to point B. And I'm not only going to be your coach, I'm going to be like the rock in your life. And that's what I wanted to become known as. I wanted to become known as one of the most solid figures in their life. And that's really what built my career. It was understanding how to adjust to that, temperament, or how to adjust to that individual when they walked into a room. I would see a name walking in and I'd be like, oh boy, here we go. Like I was just able to pick up on body language, and I would be able to immediately adjust to their temperament that day. And 10 out of 10 times they were leaving there feeling better. I mean, it was literally that type of statistic. And that was my business model. And that's all I focused on. And that's how I built an empire in the city. I mean, that club was incredible. I mean, to this day, one of the best spots I've ever seen in my life, in any state, in any country. And culturally, it was on another level. And, I really will pat myself on the back and say, that started with, us. And that started with the culture that we, brought to the table and the comfort level that we gave people. But that doesn't happen overnight.
I think the perception is that it's a young man's game, training, I think. And I think now, though, that it's shifted. And the guys that you've been describing, whether it's you, whether it's Ryan, whether it's just the guys like us that are here today, again, here you are, 46, almost 47.
Yeah.
Like, I actually think this is the better demographic. Like, quite frankly, this is the better demographic to be going. These are guys that have experience, that have lived a while, maybe have a few more bucks in their pocket, like everything else, know what they want to accomplish and do. As you said, like, I didn't chase celebrity.
Yeah.
Like we were talking earlier, it's like, because like celebrity, athletes, some of that stuff, like, it can be fickle, it can be very fickle, where it's like, here I see these guys right now in middle age and where we are. What are they looking for? They're looking for somebody that looks like them, maybe, that is around their age, that can help them see around the bend. Like, I think this is the best time for this demographic.
There's a part of experience that I never really understood when I was younger, because I was like, well, wait, if you're educated as a coach, you could train anyone. And it's partially true, but they're just things that you go through when you're 30, when you're 35, when you're 40, when you're 45, and you know what I'm talking about. There's just things from a recovery standpoint. Any injury I've ever had in my life, I've learned from, I've come back stronger. There are things I had to go through to put me in this situation where I can work with the caliber of individual that I work with now. So yeah, I agree with you 100%. I would hands down have chosen Don at 46 to train with and Don at 26.
So that's what I'm saying. I think if you are a guy looking to get back in the game a little bit, and I think a lot of these guys are looking, it's you're saying like a refresh. Like, you know what? I used to be pretty healthy. I used to be in shape, and here's what happened. I snapped my fingers and 15 years went by. And here I am. I'm looking for somebody, again, who is a few years ahead of where I am, that can tell me what a 51-year-old body feels like, that's trained all that stuff. Because that's what I need to be focused on, and have that kind of credibility and have that kind of experience and have that kind of foundation to get me back or to keep me where I am and help me get there safer, The emphasis on whether that's warm-ups, whether that's recovery, whatever movements we're doing. Like, how do we do this with a focus on sustainability and longevity? Not the getting jacked part, which is a bonus, in there, you're going to look better, but it's really not, how do we function?
But I can tell you right now, I feel better at 46 than maybe I did at 42, right? Like, even Dr. Gabrielle Line, she's more than welcome to share my blood work. Like, she even came back and did my bloods, and I've never taken a PED in my life. Like, my T levels are up at 930 right now, and she tested them 2 years ago. I think was the last time I tested them with her. They were at 680.
Now, so you haven't taken, I'm excited. You haven't taken it, and you said against it, you don't need it. Like there's a lot of stereotypes and misconceptions around any of like what guys put in their body or on their body.
I don't need it. And maybe I don't need it. Maybe, one, I don't need it. Okay, I'm going to be very clear there. Or there's nothing wrong with my blood markers that would warrant me getting on it. So let's put that aside. Am I against it? I think the specific type of individual, it would warrant them getting on it. But I could tell you the majority of the people out there that are on it probably don't need it. They just don't want to exhaust those other areas that I'm willing to exhaust. They don't want to make these lifestyle changes. I'm seeing guys now that are in their like 20s, 30s, and early 40s. And I'm like, what are you doing? Like, what are you going to what's going to happen in 10 years?
Right.
Like when you've been on this consistently. I buried my best friend in 2010. He was my head coach. His testosterone, we had to do an autopsy on him because he didn't have parents. He didn't have any family. I signed the lease on his apartment, and I had to gain rights to his body. So I had to go down to City Hall. They put his body in the morgue for 2 weeks. Otherwise, if I didn't gain rights to his body, they would have buried him in, I think it's called Plotter's Field, which is where all the unknowns go.
Okay.
So I had to gain authority to bury him. And, you know, I went down and I identified him 2 weeks after. I mean, one of the hardest things I've ever had to do in my life. I mean, he was Hulk green, you know, and the only way I was able to identify him was they had to show me his teeth. I couldn't even recognize the guy. I mean, it's a terrible story. His testosterone at that time was north of 3,000. Mine was 720 because we got him done at the same time, and then the autopsy went back in later on. We got him done about a year earlier, and then we had to go back in and see it. It was still very high. He couldn't get off of it. Every time he tried getting off of it, he felt like shit. Couldn't have sex, or he was having sex, he'd be sitting there, nothing was happening for 3 hours. His body was cramping up on him. He was white as a ghost. I'd find him in the back of my club, partially passed out, but he couldn't sleep. No energy. Anytime he was trying to get off of it. So yeah, is this someone that maybe abused it and maybe he didn't have someone in mind? He was a smart guy. He wasn't an idiot. Mm-hmm. But what are you trying to tell me? Everyone out there is like Sylvester Stallone, who has the best doctors on the planet monitoring him and being like, no, yes, this is bullshit. Bullshit. Everyone just wants to be so quick. Coaches now want to turn around and they want to do deals with a lot of these TRT places, and they're making, they're making residuals on this or whatever it is from referring people out. And I just think it's I have a certain outlook on it. But if my bloods are good and my hormone levels are good, I've had companies call me up and they're like, we'd love to do a deal with you. I'm like, well, let me ask you a question. My blood panel's like perfect. And they were like, do you still want to put me on it? And they're like, well, we should still kind of check. I'm like, you didn't hear what I just said. Like, why are you still trying to have this conversation with me? Like, if you're living a terrible quality of life, if you're my dad's age, 78, he's like, I feel like shit. I'm not going to make these changes. Dad, rip it, baby. Like, the next 10 years, finish up strong or whatever it is. I just think that we lean to this too quickly. I'm not saying it's not warranted ever. Mm-hmm. I want to be clear there. There are cases it is, but I think most people out there just want to dive into it because it's a quick fix.
And I think now it's also become so much more commonplace. Like, it went from being something that nobody wanted to do and nobody wanted to talk about to now everybody wants to do it and everybody's talking about it and it's so easy to get.
Who was the guy in Hollywood recently? I mean, this was complete, and not to cut you off, but you just literally made me think of this. Some Hollywood star who's pretty yoked up, he's got a decent body, was turning around. He's like, I trained so hard. And I literally burned the testosterone off my body. This is what he's saying. Like, I literally worked so hard in this 8-month period that he destroyed his testosterone. And that's what warranted putting him back.
It was the guy from Reacher.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't know his real name.
And I never like bashing everyone, but I just sat there the entire time. I got to be honest with you. As a professional, I sat there just shaking my head. I'm like, seriously? Like, you trained so hard that you destroyed your own testosterone levels where you had to come back in and maybe, is that the job? Is that what we have to do? Like, does this guy, no offense to him, and I know I'm doing something I normally don't like to do, which I'm kind of coming at someone, but does he have that great of a physique that suddenly oh my God, no one's ever gotten here without his level of hard work, right? No, I've trained people who've gotten into way better shape in way less time, and we've done it with less effort. It's just the reality of it. It's like, what's your perception of what is needed? And when someone introduces something to you and say, here, this is how we're going to justify it, it's not his job to know. He's an actor. He's an actor. He's not in fitness. He's not in wellness. He hasn't been studying this. He's not Dr. Gabrielle Line. He doesn't know. So he's going to take information that a specific TRT company or whatever it is giving him, and he's going to run with it, and he's going to believe it like it's the be-all, end-all. But is that really... I mean, honestly, is that the last resort there? Is that all? Did he need it?
Well, I think what you're also getting at, and this is a challenge that a lot of us guys face, is we don't know who to believe. We don't know who to trust or even where to start, whether that's a supplement, whether that's anything else, a training regimen. So go back to, okay, how do we look at
Get a few opinions.
Right, there it is. So that's what I want to know.
If you're going in for surgery, or how about this? God forbid something happens to your body and you go into a doctor and a doctor's like, you got to have surgery on it, and you're scared. Are you just going to go do it? No, I hope you're going to go get another opinion. Go get another opinion, because I have seen a lot of times where there are other surgeons or physical therapists like Dr. Charlie Weingroff's like, no, we got to give this a go. We don't have to put this person under the needle. And guess what? We've kept people out of surgery. So why would it be any different when it comes down to supplementing things that are going to potentially put you in harm's way. I don't know why someone would be so quick to take, something like Ozempic, right? Like, it's like, why are we so quick? Like, all right, well, I have to take it. I can't lose weight. I'm like, well, you're eating pizza 4 nights a week. Like, it's
Well,
like,
you're back, a lot of that is the shortcut mentality again.
Yeah.
Like, hey, what's the shortcut? What are we hearing about? Because what do we want? We want the quick fix, we want the hack, we want the shortcut, we want all of that. But I think what's also really important here, and maybe the takeaway, is several opinions, as you're saying. Like, there's a lot of noise
Why
out
not?
there. Everybody's spending, like,
Why
we call
not?
like aggregate from everything that's out there. We can do that, okay?
Right.
But you got to curate it down, and at some point, then eliminate the shit that doesn't work for you, and think about what really does. And
Right.
again, how do we really be intentional about who we listen to, what we put in our bodies, what we put on our bodies?
We got to
all-
be a
'cause
little
it's
bit
not
more
just about
patient. We have to be a little bit
fitness.
more patient. And I would not have come at that Jack Reacher character if he just would have came on and been like, listen, why did I take it? You know what? I'm nervous as shit for this role. And you know what? Like, I'm trying to put as much muscle on my body, and I was told this is going to help, and I'm going with it. And I would have been like,
Right.
like
But
round of applause.
That's honest. Okay,
But it's
you go back
honest.
to
I've
the
got buddies of
baseball.
mine. I've got buddies of mine who are power lifters, and a group of one of my really good friends. I saw a group of young athletes go up to him and go, "How'd you get this big? How'd you get this strong?" And you know what he did? He looked at them and he said, "Drugs." And I literally was sitting in the corner laughing because I'm like, finally, like, someone's being honest. They're not trying to put it off on like, I have low T. Like, it's like,
But that's the key to all this, is the honesty aspect.
bullshit.
Again, it's like, let me tell you how I really got here.
Right.
Okay? Let me tell you the conversations I had with Mel about having to pivot and the bills that were piling
Sure.
up. And let me talk about, like, and I want to talk about that. Like, hey, picking the right partner is fucking important.
Very.
Okay? It's extremely important.
Yeah.
Do you talk to your kids about this stuff too?
Yeah, it's funny because, my daughter's 16 and my son's 15. And I was laughing because my son came into me, like, it was a couple months ago, and he's like, "Hey, Dad, like, you're training a lot. Where are you getting all this stuff from?" He goes, "Oh, Dad, I found this guy on TikTok." And I'm sitting there and I'm like, he's like, "Yeah, Dad, the guy's like jacked. Like, look at him." He showed me a picture of him. I'm like, holy shit. And he's like, "What do you think of the program?" I looked at the program. I'm like, "Dad, it's great." Like, I looked at it, it was fine in the back of my head. I was like, "God damn it, he won't listen to it." If I wanted to give him a program, he wouldn't listen to it. But like, I try and guide them and steer them in the direction. But my son will ask me a lot, like, is this guy on drugs? And I'll be like, "Yeah, he is." And, he might have asked me a long time ago, and I explained to him about it, and I talked to him about Tommy, the guy who passed away, and I said, "Listen, I'm not taking away from someone who takes it. Like, I don't want to take away that there's a lot of hard work. Like, let's be very clear. No one's looking like Ronnie Coleman unless he ran through the cycles he ran through. Like, you're not competing on the stage with Chris Bumstead if you take what Chris is taking. Like, this is an exceptional, extraordinary person who is able, whether it was genetics or hard work or connecting with nutrition or the right team. And I never want to take away from that. All I'm asking you to do is just take ownership over it, man, and be honest. Like, just walk into a room and just be like, "Yeah, I take it. Why? Well, do you think? Oh, yeah. You know what? I wanted an edge, or I wanted a little extra. I was nervous about getting ready for a role. Just be honest. Stop with the whole fluffy bullshit of like, suddenly I have this massive problem where I have to get on it."
I think it's true, and I think it holds up across any of these categories.
Right.
It holds up whether it's about business, whether it's about fitness,
Yes.
whether it's about
Yes.
what it comes down to is like, can we have transparent conversations where we're really honest?
Right.
And then you get to decide, hey, do I want to do this or not? Am I willing to do what it takes?
Right.
Is it, am I willing to go sweep these floors in my 20s to get here at 30? Am I willing to take this, or do I need to get here? Because we go back to like, look, if you're whatever, I know some really old 30-year-olds. I know some really young 60-year-olds. So I don't even really say that we're going to define even middle age into this one necessary bucket in here. But it's like, what does success look like to you? We talked about, reframe or refreshing, that you've had to do. Like, okay, I want to be in this kind of shape, but I want to make this kind of money, and I want to be home this many hours, and all of these things, they're all in the bucket. So again, it's not like we have to specialize. I think specialist or generalist, I guess, is kind of where.
Yeah, I think success, I define
I'm
it just as a simple term, peace of mind. I don't know, because we can dress up success so differently, right? I know guys that are making, $1 million a year that live way, they live in a bracket, in a category that's like, they live very comfortable. I know guys making, 20, 30, 100 million a year that are just like holy shit, like the amount of money that they spend is insanity. So like, and they're driving themselves crazy, trying to just, oh, it's always go, 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 go. And like, do I find that success? Like maybe monetarily, but there's such, I call them mental midgets. Like they're just literally at this point mentally where they just can't, they're just like insecure about life and insecure about business or all this stuff. Yet I'll know other people that, a couple $100,000 a year, and they're just like, okay, man, I'm putting money away. I'm living in a good place and I'm happy. And like, so to me, it's like, I don't really define it as much as money anymore because there's nothing that impresses me more in the person that's just confident and they just roll into the room and they're just like, yeah, like, it's what I do. This is what I make. And like, this is like, are you happy? Incredibly happy. Do you love your wife? I love my wife. How are things with your kids? Fantastic. Like, how's business going? It's going well. Like, are you ever going to push it and go any harder? No, I'm not actually. And I'm like, why? Like, because I don't want it. And I'm just suddenly sitting there and I'm like, holy shit. Like, this is impressive. Like, and I'm not even going to tell you that they're full of shit when they're saying that stuff because I know them and they're genuine about the way that, I know who they are. So just to see someone with that level of comfort with how they live and their happiness level, to me, like that's success. Now, I'm someone that part of being successful is the fact that I like to work and I like to continue to grow and build. That's who I am. But I'm also like not going to get myself sick over it to where like I'm suddenly becoming a terrible father and a terrible husband because I am so obsessed with being worth, making $15 million a year. Like I'm not going to put myself into that category either. I've also learned to kind of step back and say, listen, man, take a deep breath. You're doing really well. Like you pulled yourself out of hell in the last 10 years and you can't control everything right now. You got to keep working, keep treating people right, keep putting yourself in good situations. And like everything else has happened to you in life, good doors are going to open. I believe in that. And if it does, and I continue to be more successful, great. And if I don't, like I'm going to know that I gave it my all. And that's honestly, like it sounds corny, but that's literally how I'm trying to live by.
But those are the basics. Like the basics, again, like, hey, if I can, the basics, blocking and tackling, if I have kind of my integrity, and the things that make me happy and even what a good day looks like, and how can I string a number of those together, out there, is that, as you said, I'm not writing a business plan for 5, 10, 15 years down the road because I really can't predict the future. But if I act this way, like if I continue to take care of myself, if I continue to focus on my family, if I continue to treat people a certain way, then like I can foresee like what is 50-year-old like what does 50-year-old Don look like?
It's
what
3 years from now, so it's
right?
not that far off. I don't know. I just think it's like that much more mature and more confident, hopefully, and excelling even more in business. And I'm one of these people that just believe as I move on, things are going to progress. Like I don't, knock on wood. I mean, I don't. It got pretty bad at a certain period of time, right? It's when you're in Manhattan and you have that type of overhead and you're dealing with those type of bills and and like I said, 37 consecutive payrolls. I mean, it's a pretty shitty run to have. But I'm here and I'm in the best place I've been in since I've been in business. So
that always comes up though. Like, okay, is that what continues again on the drive and the motivation? Like, okay, do you feel? Again, I've talked about this with my friends, and Kirk's sitting right over there right now. It's like, I always feel like I could be one day away from being broke again.
Oh yeah.
Or something.
I know I'm expendable. I've said this plenty of times, especially in my line of work. Like I know that I could be replaced. So I think that's been one of my really good qualities. Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to tell you that you don't think things are going to dry out. I mean, God, look what happened in 2020. But I'm also not like obsessing over it. It's something I've really worked at for a while is to not sit there and not, well, what if? Like, I'm really trying to focus on what needs to get done, like now, and the things I need to do to be successful, and not like, well, the what if. I can't really control what if. I think in the back of your head, that if you make decisions, things can go to shit. I think you know that, but I've done a good job in being present in my business and being present in the things we're working on now, and just trying to put myself in the good positions. It's that simple for me. Like, I'm not going to sit here and, well, what if we have another pandemic? And what's going to happen when people aren't, maybe I'm not in shape, or maybe people don't want to learn programs from me when I'm 60, or it's like, listen, man, I over the last 20 years, the amount of business opportunity that's been thrown at me that I could not predict, I couldn't predict anything, it didn't exist. Most of the stuff I do now didn't exist. So that's just living proof that I just got to kind of be present, and I got to go with it.
Do you think there's a time where it's too late to start? Meaning like, hey, I'm too old, I've been working too hard, like I don't know how to get it back in there too. Like, I think this is a big challenge for guys too. They're like, okay, have I let myself go too long? Has this been like, I see the outcome, or I see this other, it seems so far away, like.
Yeah, but how are they quantifying success? Like, if someone's getting into fitness and they're like, oh, it's too late. Like, I always say, like, you're one day away from being on the right track. Like, it's one of those things where how you like, I quantify success with a feeling, right? And I just want to feel that every day. And because I feel that every day, it's allowed me to become world-class in a category, right? And I don't think that's an egotistical comment. It's the reality of it. I've worked for 25, 30 years on this, and I've put myself on a map or in a specific position through hard work. But like, every day, me coming in and focusing on this and just quantifying success, not through a scale, but through a feeling, has what's allowed me and the people I've worked with to become very successful in this category. So all I'm asking them to do is, like, it's not too late. Do it because you want to feel something. And then if you feel something, the aesthetic piece of it's going to follow, or maybe the business piece of it's going to follow.
So we overcomplicate it.
I think so. You don't think so?
No, listen, I happen to agree with that. I think we do overcomplicate it. I think it's as simple as, hey, today's the day I start. I develop a new habit. I trade my consistency in one area for trying to be consistent again in another area. As we've talked about, I'm going to swap some unhealthy habits for a healthy habit. I think when I listen and I hear from the best and brightest out there, it makes sense to me, which is like, here's what we do day in and day out, and here's how we do it. And if you continue to do that one day at a time, you will make tremendous progress. Stop thinking about all these outcomes and stop thinking about all these other things, or you don't have the time, you don't do this. Look at the best and the brightest that are out there and just listen to them. Do it, as you said, find them, cut through the noise. Find the ones you believe in, get a few different opinions, pick a horse, and then start doing it each day.
Right.
And everything else starts to fall into place, after that.
I honestly believe it can be that simple. Like, sometimes when I look at because I've worked with a few people worth billions of dollars. I've worked with one of the wealthiest human beings. And when you look at how they run their life and their business, and you look at how they handle their fitness and wellness, it's like here and here, when they're like, in my opinion, no different. And I looked at this one billionaire, this one individual, I can't mention his name, and I said, well, let me ask you a question. When you started your company, which you would know right now if I named it, what did you do? And he was like, well, I had an idea and I started assembling a team. And I'm like, well, how'd you handle it every day? Like, did you just wake up and just say, hey, we need to work on this today? Or were you, no? He's like, no, we had a plan in place and we had a team in place. And I was great at surrounding myself with people who weren't good at what I did. And I'm like, well, let me ask you a question. Up until now, until you and I hooked up, how'd you handle your wellness and fitness and stuff? Let's start with nutrition. He's like, oh, I just kind of grab stuff out of the fridge. I said, oh, so you just kind of wake up every day and just decide what you want to do in business? And he just kind of looked at me. I'm like, what about training? He's like, oh, I was pulling stuff off of YouTube. I'm like, oh, so you're just waking up every day and just saying, oh, well, I think we got to work on this category. And he just kind of looked at me and I was kind of relating everything back to what he would have done wrong in business. I'm like, dude, they're the same exact things. It really are. You get a plan in place, or you get a direction you want to go in. And then I think the first thing is you got to recognize that you cannot do this on your own. You need to, maybe assemble a team around you. Fortunately, you have the money to do it. You can get a chef. You can get the best coach on the planet. You could get coaches in your other homes in other areas of the country. I could set it up for you. There are no excuses. All you have to do is just show up and just follow this, and it just was something that he trained himself in one area to be so great. and the other area he just neglected, and because of
Well, I
that.
call that the over-indexing trap.
Right.
You know, and if you can now work your way out of the over-indexing trap to back to what more of a holistic, you know, metric again for success looks like, or total life wellness. And I like the analogy because it's like, look, run your life like you run your business.
Yeah.
Like you would never accept underperforming quarter after quarter without making some changes. You know, if I asked you for your business plan, you could show it to me. But if I asked you for your life plan or your workout or anything else, you couldn't show it. So it's not measurable, it's not quantifiable. You have no idea really where you stand.
Right.
Versus walking in here and like the first thing you point to is like, okay, well, here's my training schedule with my training partner, and here's exactly what we
do. Yeah, 100%.
Right. So it's measurable, it's quantifiable, but now it makes sense to these guys also who are used to running big businesses and used to managing people who are not managing themselves very well or their overall area of life, which is actually an interesting, I'll make it a transition here into, you know, what I do with a lot of my clients right now is develop their personal operating systems like that.
Right.
Say, look, you got to run your life like you run your business. Let's use all of these terms. So what would it look like if we actually built your map, your midlife action plan, your personal operating system? Because now you have something to follow. If you don't have a plan, then you got nothing to follow. That's just the random shit that like you were talking about there. What are you eating? I just grab whatever's in the refrigerator. What do you do when you work out? I just randomly YouTube whatever the thing is for today. And you would never build $1 billion company, you know, that way.
No.
At all. So we have the 6 F's at Midlife Male: family, fitness, finance, food, fashion, and fun.
You named me before. I was trying to see if I could still pick up on them.
If you have a 7th or 8th, you could throw them all in. Okay?
6 is good.
But like, six is good for the matter of time. So we have the 6 F's at Midlife Male. And I would like to kind of one by one kind of just get your thesis on it. Like if I say like what is your thesis on family? Like what are your...
My thesis on family? I mean, listen, that's always my number one objective, right? Like that starts at the top. But I also understand that if I'm going to be able to dedicate what I need to dedicate to them, I have to get a little bit selfish. Not really, selfish is a bad word, but I got to get a little self-centered, and I got to start, you know, making sure that I'm focusing on the things that I need for myself in my life. So I never necessarily understood like, parent gets a little busy and they're suddenly, well, I don't have time to do this, right? And when I met my wife, I told her, I said, listen, there's a few things that you have to understand about me. Like training, it's gonna happen at weird times of the day. We're gonna be at Disney with the kids. You're gonna be at breakfast waiting for me to get back from the gym. It's just part of it. And like most people would look at that like as, oh, well, that's a little self-centered. Like I'm my most important client. If I can't handle and I can't take care of myself, I can't lead by example, and I can't provide for my family the way that I want to provide for. If I'm not feeling good about my health and my wellness and my physique and all this other stuff, I am not going to be able to do what I need to do for my family. So family is always the most important thing, but I want to be very clear that like for me to be able to be the dad that I am, and I'm a good father, and for me to be able to be the husband I am, and I'm a good husband, I need to still focus on those things that most people aren't prioritizing. They think they're prioritizing their family over themselves, and that's a good thing. And I actually think that's a bad thing.
The notion of self-care not being selfish.
Right.
But actually being selfless in the manner you can live and lead by example.
That's why I didn't want to say it was selfish or self-centered, but in a way, that's how most people look at it as. And I look at it as the complete opposite. I think it's more selfish and I think it's more selfish for you to let yourself go. Because think about it, like my kids, I don't tell my kids to eat well. Like my kids like to eat well sometimes because they see their father, or they want to be fit because they see their parents. And you know, when a parent contacts me and they go, "How do you get your kids to do this?" I'm like, "I don't. I lead by example." Like, "How are you eating?" "Well, not that good." "How much are you training?" "No, haven't trained in years." What the fuck are you trying to get them to do it for then? Like seriously, like like lead by example. Get your shit together. And then they're sitting there, we're like,
well, I think you hit the nail on the head. It's like, listen, I don't have to say it or try to force them into doing it. And quite frankly, take all that time, energy, everything else, because all they have to do is just see how your mom and I are living.
Sure.
Like that's what they really see, because they're only going to really believe what it is that you're doing anyway.
It's like what I said to what I told you about my son earlier when we used to go out to the jungle gym. He would look at me and my training partner, go, "Dad, can I come?" And I'd be like, "No." And he would just look at me and be like, me and my training partner Tone would be looking at each other, just kind of like smirking at each other, laughing because he knew what I was doing. He was older than me, and I'm just like, no, man, this is big boy stuff. Like, Daddy loves you, but we're gonna go out, and we're gonna train. But Dad, I can do it. He's like 6 years old. Like, all right, man, listen, come on out. But listen, the second you get bored or you don't want to be here, just go outside and watch TV. This is work. This is important for Dad. And like, my little guy would be out there like trying to keep up, and he would hang with us the entire time. Rather than most parents are like, the second their kid gets bored, they're like, come on, man, one more set. And I'm like, all right, like, I get what you're trying to do, but you're wrong. Like, it's you're trying to push them to a point where maybe at that age they're not ready for it. And maybe they're gonna get pissed off at you, or maybe they're gonna get a terrible relationship with food or training because you're trying to shove things down their throat. I used to eat fast food like crazy when I was in high school. I really did. Like, I'll go to In-N-Out Burger once in a while or on the West Coast. Otherwise, I don't see it, I don't touch it. Like, it's not part of my life. Like, I turned out good, but the young kids are really.
I have to go every Saturday with my son. Okay, to the one.
I would go to In-N-Out Burger. I swear to God, if there was an In-N-Out Burger open in my town, I would put one meal aside every day, and I would go there and eat. I love it. It's my favorite thing.
We have them now in Texas now, so every
They're
weekend that's like
amazing.
a burger crawl for my son and I.
Love it.
We kind of covered fitness in there too, and a lot of it, but finance. You
Yeah.
talk, like Don Saladino on finance, money, if you will.
Yeah. Well, when it comes to investing, or when it comes to saving,
Just
or
like, hey, like, I've got this theory. People are like, what's wealthy to you? Like, what do you think about money? And I go, you know what? I think wealth to me is I want to have enough money to do what I want to do, when I want to do it, for as long as I want to do it, with who like that's it. Some guys are live to work guys. Some guys are work to live guys. As you said, like you touched on it a little bit.
I love my work, and I think work is part of my life. Like, work is part of my passion and what I do. So being in here with Rob or Mel, or and creating what we create is actually, it's work, but it's also like, I feel like I've got this mission to want to do it. I think from the money piece of it, like, I know what I make a year, but I'm also like, I don't know it to the cent. That just shows that, like, I'm creating in the last 4 or 5 years, we're continuing to increase that number, and we're continuing to do better. And it's just not something I obsess over. My wife and I save. We are doing a great renovation to the house. We reinvest in certain things, and we're smart with our money. But I'm also not sitting there so obsessed that I know every penny of what I know that number's growing. We want to keep growing it. I need to focus at the things that are gonna make us more money. And do I want to make more money? Yes, I do. I like money, just like you do. We all like money. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that it's not important. I like to travel when I want to travel. I like to fly first class. There's certain things that I just like to do and I want to do, and I feel like that I should be able to do because I do work hard. But money it doesn't take over my outlook on what it is I'm actually trying to do here. It was like when I talked to you earlier about when I worked at Equinox and what I was charging, or I wasn't concerned with the money. I was concerned with the outcome. And because of that, it gave me more money. I have not changed in that fashion. Taking on more bills, and I spend more money. We have college and all these things coming up, but I'm in a really good place with it. But if I told you right now that I didn't want to continue to become more and more successful financially, I'd be lying to you. It's part of it's fun. It's part of the game. It's part of you building and you creating. And when I'm in an industry that I can get in touch with more people and help more people, and then good things come from that, I think it's a great thing. Anything wrong with that?
Food and nutrition.
Yes.
Do you track? Do you
I do.
care that like where are you in that line between like obsessive compulsive and like,
I
as I said,
probably
I'll go to the drive-thru, In-N-Out, and eat what I want?
I probably track 60 to 70% of my year to like the cent. And then there are times like when I'm traveling, I don't track when I travel. Now, if I knew I had to prepare for a shoot, yeah, I'm tracking. But it rarely happens when I have to travel. I've lucked out with that. Yeah. I'm going to be in Austria for 8-9 days. I will drink a couple beers every day, and I will eat pasta. And you'd think, why would you eat pasta in Austria? It's actually delicious in the place that we're at. I'm not going to obsess over that stuff, right? But I obsess more about it at home. So when I go away and I'm in those environments, I can enjoy. When I go away on business, or last couple of weeks I was traveling, I was eating really well, and I was in front of an In-N-Out Burger last week in Vegas, and I was like, oh, I'm going for it, right? Like, it's just So yeah, I won't I obsess when it's time to obsess, and I obsess a lot of times because I love it and I enjoy the process of it. But when it's time to go in, I go all in, man. Let's have some fun.
Fashion, style.
Love it. I mean, love it. I mean, sometimes people forget that I'm working out here. I'm going to be in a t-shirt and a black pair of pants. So when I go out at night, I like to dress. I work with a couple of companies that really take good care of me. Grace and Clothiers is a great one. I've always liked to shop. But again, when you're out in the barn, sometimes you get a little complacent in sleeveless shirts and, you have some fun with that. But yeah, no, I love it. It's a big part of what I do. I think it's also it allows you a level of confidence. I think when you walk in a room and you feel good about yourself, I think that's important. I think we should feel good about ourselves and we should put a little extra time in taking care of ourselves. And clothing's a big part of that. Fashion's a big part of it.
I think it also gets into, everything, first of all, looks better when you're in shape.
Yeah.
But I also, in this category, because I just kept them in Fs, but I think style and confidence, all that runs into dermatology, teeth, Botox, all of those things. Do you do all that stuff?
Yeah. So my teeth, I get cleaned every 3 months, which might even, some people think is a little excessive. Dermatology, I go to Dr. Gary Goldenberg. He's a buddy of mine. He experimented with some Botox on me recently. He did a little light stuff around my eyes. He talked me into it. I didn't think I was ever going to do it, but he said it was good for preservation. So I'm like, I like that word. Let's go with it. I actually didn't dislike it. I was just more worried about it coming off looking plastic. I think I did that 5 months ago, so it's worn off by now. Would I do it again? Sure, I probably would. But I'm not jumping in the car to go do it. If I get around to it, great. And if I don't, I don't. Skincare, yeah. I get a little bit like American Psycho at the time. I'm going through all my exfoliation. Yeah, a little Pat David. But I enjoy it. I'm a routine person. I wake up in the morning, even with my supplements, even with my morning routine, when I say morning routine, I mean how I hydrate and how I supplement and when I make breakfast and when I have caffeine, and all these things happen at the same time in the same process. It's all very regimented. It's just because I enjoy that stuff. Don't follow my morning routine. It doesn't always work. And the things I do that are wrong, you shouldn't be checking emails and eating breakfast. Well, I do. I just you should wake up in the morning and not be on your handheld first thing in the morning. Well, I do. It's sorry guys, it's how I have to live, and it's the things that I need to do for me to be successful. And I have, I got a schedule, and I don't have the freedom to be able to walk outside and walk around barefoot and connect with the magnetic fields of the earth and all these things that yeah, man, I'd love to do it, and I'd love to sit there and meditate and do all this crazy shit. But
we were talking about that before. It's the list of things. It's you could do all these things. You could do the breath work. You could do the grounding. You could do the meditation. You could do the journaling. You could follow all these rules, and you know what? You could be you could be failing. You could be winning in all those areas, but literally everything else could be falling.
I got asked about cold plunging the other day. What I can't stand when people put these things into a category that's it's the be all end all, it's going to cure cancer. And I'm just no, this is just a tool in the toolbox. Yesterday, you asked me what did I do on my off day? I went for a walk with my wife. I threw a weighted vest on. It was really low intensity. I felt great from it. I stretched a little bit. I felt great from it. I took a 20-minute sauna with my training partner. Felt great. Took a 3-minute cold plunge. I felt great. My body felt great. And it's that's what I like to do to allow myself to feel really good. I am not putting that ahead of any of the other things I need to do, like sleep and nutrition and reducing stress. And, I know it's such a minute piece of the puzzle, but it puts me into a good headspace. So I will continue to do it. Yet, you hear certain people, oh, it's great. And certain people are it's bullshit. And I'm stop. It puts me into a great spot. I feel great. My body feels good from doing it. I'm going to continue to do it, right? So I think people start leaning in a certain direction. They feel like they have to take ownership over something. And it's I think it's a little too much, in my opinion.
Fun is the last one.
Ooh.
And I think it's something a lot of guys in midlife in particular are not having enough of, or maybe even having the wrong kinds,
Yeah.
And we talked earlier about live a little, live a lot, what the definition kind of fun is. And I know that we consider this fun. What we did here in the barn and all.
But what
that.
else?
Right. But what else? What do you do for fun? What do you consider fun?
Well, I'll start with something really simple. Once in a while, my wife and I going out, grabbing dinner, or even just like me and the kids and my wife walking around the mall the other day, grabbing lunch and just kind of chilling out. Spending family time for me is always fun. There's other things I do for myself. I play in the wintertime. I play hockey. Tuesday morning, I'll go through it. Tuesday morning at 6:30, Wednesday night at 8:15 p.m., Friday morning at 7, Saturday morning at 7. I'm off the ice those mornings by 8 o'clock. I'm home by about 8:20, right? That for me. So I play hockey 4 days, up to 4 days a week. That's awesome in the wintertime. In the summertime, I play golf. Try and play golf 2 to 3 mornings a week. I could be on the golf course with my buddy Doc Bill Healy. We could tee off at 7:10 and I'm back home by 9:15, 9:20. That's 18 holes. We take 2 carts, 1 4 caddy, we're gone. We play the front 9 in about a little under an hour. We play the back 9 in about an hour. We're off the course in 2 hours on a weekday. I'll play maybe a Friday afternoon and a weekend. And that for me is fun. And that's balance. Otherwise, I work 7 days a week. Most people are going to be like, whoa, take a day off and disconnect. I'm like, no, I like coming out here. I like knocking off emails. I like preparing my week on a Sunday. I like taking a few minutes to just do that. There's never a day that goes by that I don't check emails. Is that bad? Maybe. It's just, that's who I am. Like am I on Instagram checking my DMs? Yes, I am. It's part of work, but it's part of what I enjoy. That's just who I am, and that's how I live.
Don Saladino, Midlife Male Podcast. Thank you very much, my friend. I love
fun.
this day. Thank you for having us in
My
your
pleasure.
home, in your barn, training us, spending time doing
You
all
guys
this.
did well.
I
You guys
really,
moved
really
well.
appreciate it.
You guys moved well. Next time we'll turn it up a notch a little bit, but I thought it was a good day for you guys.
Next time, you caught that, right? So next time. There you go.
There will be a next time.
There will be a next time.
Thanks for your
Thank
time.
you, buddy.
I appreciate
really
it.
appreciate it.
Thanks so much for listening. If you can leave us a review on Spotify or Apple, that would mean so much to us and really help us out. Also, be sure to subscribe and check us out on YouTube at Midlife Male. We'll see you next time.